Good morning, truth seekers, liberty lovers, and red-blooded Americans. I'm Conservative Cat. Welcome back to the Conservative Cat Show, and this is the place where we shine a spotlight on corruption and we expose wolves in sheep's clothing, and we expose those wolves who want to rob you of your freedom and of your faith. And today we are taking a deep dive into Illinois politics as usual. We're looking at federal spending, and we are going to look at the governor who's crying crocodile tears over what he calls the big ugly bill. So we're going to get to all of that, and we are going to get to Ron DeSantis building a swamp prison. Alligator Alcatraz is what it's called, and Donald Trump loves it. So we're going to get to that. We're also going to expose some of the poison pills. Some of them, there's a lot of them. There's something about the Second Amendment that you need to know about the big, beautiful bill. There's some issues with it. But today we're going to expose how Congress quietly shoved what I call a blue state bailout into the big, beautiful bill. Okay, so it's like a blue state bailout. So we're going to get into all of that this morning. Governor J.B. Pritzker also picked a lieutenant governor, Christian. We're going to get to him here as well. And I do want to talk a little bit about the New York mayor race, because Donald Trump said, look, if he is going to impede law enforcement and, there are going to be consequences. That's what Donald Trump said about Zoran Mamdani, the socialist, the communist. Let's, be accurate with our words here. He's the Democratic New York mayoral candidate, and he has said that he's going to defy ICE and federal immigration law. And Donald Trump said, look, if Mamdani wants to do that, that's fine. He's going to be arrested for interfering with federal immigration enforcement. And he added, Donald Trump said, there's no place for a communist in this country. And I tend to agree with the idea that there is no place for a communist in America. Also, we will be getting into this Gallup poll that found, and this shouldn't shock you if you've been paying attention, found that the Democrat Party hates America. Okay, this poll, a lot of Democrats wouldn't say that they feel very proud or extremely proud of America. There's only 36% of Democrats who would say that. 92% of Republicans are proud to be American, whereas only 36% of Democrats say that they're proud to be an American. So we're going to get to all of it. Be sure to subscribe, like this video, share this out with your friends, and follow me on social media. Let's get into Governor J.B. Pritzker crying his crocodile tears over the big, beautiful bill. He calls it the big, ugly bill. This is supposed to be working its way through Congress. I think that the Senate passed it. It's probably got to go back to the House for some sort of concurrence. I don't know if it's officially passed. I don't think that it has been yet. It's moving pretty quickly, though, and I think that it's going to get signed by President Donald Trump here. There are a few poison pills. We will get to it. It's not a perfect bill. There are some flaws in it. But Governor J.B. Pritzker says that the bill is going to kill people. Yes, you heard that right. He outright said it, that the bill will kill people. Now, folks, I'm going to break this down piece by piece, because behind these alarmist headlines and these dramatic sound bites, there is a story here about misplaced priorities, unchecked hypocrisy, and political theater that insults every hardworking family in Illinois and across the country. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and buckle up, because this is one for the record books. Let's begin with Governor J.B. Pritzker and his performance at a press conference this week. So the man, he seems very concerned about poor people losing their health care and their food. Quote, people will die because this bill is going to be signed into law by the president. This is what Governor J.B. Pritzker said. Really there, J.B., people will die because of the big, beautiful bill? I don't think so. He's referring to, of course, this big, beautiful bill. It's a sweeping package backed by congressional Republicans and President Donald Trump. Now, the bill does reform the SNAP program. You would know this better as food stamps. And it tightens up Medicaid, and it requires work requirement, or it implements work requirements if you want to receive Medicaid or SNAP. Okay, so the work requirements are really chill. It's like 20 hours a week if you are able-bodied, a certain age, very young, and have no dependents. So these are pretty much your single young men who are able-bodied and they're hanging out in grandma's basement. Donald Trump, with this big, beautiful bill, says, no, you're going to get off your butt and you're going to work. Okay, so what this bill doesn't do is remove food from the mouths of legal citizens who are having a tough go at it. Okay, I'm not against social programs completely. This is meant to be used for somebody who is having a tough go at it and is down on their luck. Okay, what this does do, this bill, the BBB, it reins in this out of control entitlement bureaucracy that we have, and it's bleeding our nation dry. And it also incentivizes work over dependency. That's what this bill does. See, you see, Pritzker, he doesn't want to hear that part because if you hear that part, he doesn't want you to hear that part. If you hear that part, then he's going to have to answer. I would love if Governor J.B. Pritzker was just asked the question, hey, why are so many people in Illinois on SNAP? I mean, it's millions of people who are on SNAP here in the state of Illinois. I would love for somebody just to ask him, hey, why is that? Because I'm telling you right now, it's not a Republican-controlled House or Senate, and the governor's office, it's all been predominantly run by Democrats or Republicans who are actually Democrats, like Bruce Rauner. So he doesn't want you to hear that this is to rein in out of control entitlement bureaucracy and rein in dependency. And he doesn't want you to hear that this is actually going to incentivize people to go out and work. And the abuse is going to be addressed in these programs like SNAP and Medicaid. He doesn't want you to hear that part because then he would have to realize his own policies here in Illinois are part of the problem, not the solution. And he'd have to talk about, how all these people and why they're on SNAP and why they're on Medicaid. It's really because of the overtaxation here in this state. If they had that money back in their pockets, they wouldn't need food stamps to go to the grocery store. But like I said, he doesn't want you to hear the facts. Let me get to the facts. The bill proposes $300 billion in reductions to SNAP. So what does that mean over the next decade, by the way? So this is not a cut in the traditional sense of the word. It is pulling current benefit, and it's not pulling current benefits from people who are on it, unless they fall into that camp of, hey, I'm a 20-year-old man, I'm an able-bodied person, and I have no dependents, and I'm not working at all. They're going to require him to go work 20 hours in order to receive it. 20 hours, that's part-time. It's pretty chill. Okay, that's I can't believe that this requirement didn't exist before. So what's going on here is not a cut. It is a reduction, and it's about slowing the growth of a bloated program that has nearly doubled in size since 2008. That is unsustainable. This has really gotten crazy how many people are on SNAP. And a lot of people, I know people who are, abusing this program. They'll even get their SNAP cards and they'll sell them for cash. Okay, so this is abuse. So what this bill does, it reintroduces work requirements, the little thing that our grandparents used to call responsibility. All you have to do is show that you're semi-responsible, and then you will get this benefit, this SNAP program. Republicans like Darren LaHood, they call this bill a pro-worker bill, one of the most pro-worker bills in American history. And I would say a good majority of this BBB is good stuff. Now, there are some poison pills in that, and I will get to that. There's some really crazy things around the Second Amendment that are there, but also SALT deductions, they're raising those. We'll get to that here in just a second. But Darren LaHood, he says that this is a pro-worker bill. Overall, it is a pro-worker bill. It rewards people who hustle, especially hourly workers, first responders, and people who, do tax. It's going to do no tax on tips, and it's going to eliminate taxes on overtime and give families more breathing room. Okay. And, people say, oh, the no tax on tips, you're being favorable to one specific industry. Look, after COVID-19, and I was a server during COVID-19, after COVID-19, we've got something really going on crazy in the service industry. These tipped employees, specifically the food service industry, because people had to shut down their restaurants and they never truly recovered from the pandemic. And I think Donald Trump understands that, which is why he ran on this, the no taxes on tips. He wants to boost that. And Donald Trump, the crux of who Donald Trump is, he wants people to have actual jobs. And what do I mean by that? That's people who go out, create a service or provide a service or create a product and sell that and somebody wants it. Okay, that's just the crux of who Donald Trump is and who Republican conservatives are. We believe in that, not, Becky, who's working as a PR firm consultant and, makes 100 million social media posts for this consultant firm, or, none of that. DEI directors, people who don't make anything, but they're administrators or they're like bureaucrats almost. So the administrative state is over. What Donald Trump wants to do is reward people who make things and actually keep the economy functioning and actually keep America functioning. So yes, he is favorable to specific industries because those industries, like manufacturing, the things, the people who make things, the people who do things, those people should be, because they are the backbone. I know politicians like to throw that phrase around, oh, they are the backbone to this nation. Those types of people actually are the backbone to this nation, and they should be treated favorably because that's what's going to work for the economy. Anyway, instead of embracing that, what Governor J.B. Pritzker is doing is moaning about hospitals closing because Medicaid, right? They're saying that Medicaid's going to get cut. Look, the whole reason why hospitals charge so much for a box of Kleenex is because this Medicaid has just gotten so out of hand. So say a box of Kleenex, you go to the hospital and it's like $40. The reason why they charge $40 is because they know that they've got the Medicaid, or this patient has Medicaid, and that those government dollars are coming in. If it wasn't so highly subsidized, it would be more affordable. Okay, so he's crying, moaning, Governor J.B. Pritzker, about hospitals closing and warning about climate change. So I want to get to this as well, because another great part of the big, beautiful bill is that it stops a lot of the green energy tax credits. So, for example, food processing plants, ADM indicator, what they do and have done is they've taken tax credits under the Biden administration, tax credits to create foods that nobody really wants. And like I said, it is something fundamental about the difference between a conservative and the people on the left, I guess. I don't even know what to call them anymore. Anti-Christians, really. And I think it really comes down to your religion and what you truly believe, and your core values. So the core values of somebody on the right says, okay, you have to create a product, and that product has to be good enough for somebody to want to buy it. Or a service, you have to provide a service for somebody to actually want to use your service, okay? Now on the left, they think, oh, well, if we just inflate or bloat this specific product, somebody will eventually want it. Or, the nonprofit sector, where they say, oh, if we just say we have to save the manatees, say it's a nonprofit to save the manatees. If we just scream about it and lobby about it, in the Capitol, then we're doing a good job, and we're making a difference. You're not making a difference. That kind of stuff actually doesn't contribute to the economy. So ADM in Decatur, what they would get is tax credits to create food nobody really wanted, under this whole guise of green energy policies. Okay. So what they would do is create I don't know if they specifically created Beyond Burger, or, the fake meat. Okay. But nobody really eats that. Do you know anybody who really eats that crap? No, nobody actually eats like alternative meat. That's why you go into the grocery stores and it's like sitting on the shelves and nobody's bought a single item, the Beyond Burgers or whatever. So food processing plants, if they created soy-based products, which is really, really bad for your health, by the way, but that's a whole nother story because you've got hexane in the process. What they do is they take up crushed up soybeans and then they soak it in hexane and then they extract the oil from the soybeans. They create the oil and then they make things like the Beyond Burger or alternative meats with that oil. So that was incentivized because it's green, I guess. And nobody's ever really proved that red meat is bad for the climate. They say cow farts contribute to the destruction of our ozone layer or whatever because of the methane. Like, give me a break. Okay. That is junk science, and Joe Biden and the leftists, they bought into it, and that's why they offered these tax credits. And nobody really wants that stuff, right? So they're propping up the economy with these tax credits and getting these companies to do things that the consumer does not want. And really, it's to destroy America. That's the intention, is to destroy America and get people to eat, I don't know, fake meat and get people to be, it's about control. They want to control what you eat because that's socialism. So they don't want you to eat what you want, so I went down this rabbit hole, but really at the end of the day, that's what this bill does. It incentivizes real work. We're not giving tax credits out to people for the green weenie crap that people really don't want, or it's not actually green. It's not that is fake meat does nothing for the environment. Okay, does nothing for the economy either because nobody really wants it. But Pritzker's out there crying about the climate change and the hospitals closing because heaven forbid we actually let people keep more of their money and expect able-bodied adults to contribute something before taking handouts. At the end of the day, this is about, hey, no more handouts. Hey, we're going to incentivize real work. That's what the crux of the big beautiful bill is really all about. So let's cut through the noise, get to the heart of this. State Representative Adam Niemerg, Republican, hit the nail on the head when he said, "Spare me the hypocrisy, Pritzker." He's sitting there crying about how the rural hospitals are going to close because of the big beautiful bill. Not true. They shouldn't. And it's really creating a model, and it's saying, hey, you shouldn't be pricing hospitals based on all of this Medicaid and inflating your prices knowing you're going to get that government subsidy. It's too much, the government subsidy. That's why hospitals are getting away with gouging you for an ambulance ride that cost $5,000 when the ambulance was well paid off 6 years ago, right? And they're charging you $5,000 for an ambulance ride. It makes no sense. But the reason why they get away with that is because this industry is so heavily subsidized. Once we take those subsidies away, then the pricing comes down and there's going to be more access to care for people overall. So Adam Niemerg says, spare me the hypocrisy. Why? Because Governor J.B. Pritzker is screaming about how poor people are going to lose access to care. No, people don't have access to care now. And the reason for that is because Medicaid is so heavily subsidized and it requires people to get off of it. Okay, if it's not as heavily subsidized, the hospitals are going to be pricing the way they should be. And he's hilarious, Governor J.B. Pritzker, in that he rolled out the red carpet for illegal immigrants to get health care. Okay, under his leadership, Illinois became one of the very few states in the country that offered full taxpayer-funded health care to undocumented adults. Now, that's not, emergency care. This was just full health care, not for children, but for illegal immigrant adults. Full coverage paid for by you and me. So, this little giveaway is costing Illinois hundreds of millions of dollars. It's expected to balloon. I mean, there's been all kinds of projections around this $300 million in 1 year. I don't know how much we've actually spent on illegal immigrants and their and them overall in the state. But it's expected to balloon past $1 billion a year. Okay, $1 billion we're doling out for the healthcare specifically. It might even be more than that, but Pritzker doesn't think that's a crisis. Okay, the taxpayers are paying for the illegal immigrants to get healthcare when they can't even get healthcare themselves. And he's fine with giving your money to people who shouldn't even really be here, but he's deeply concerned about federal government trying to put up a few guardrails for welfare programs. I mean, that's not compassion, friends. That's manipulation. What Governor J.B. Pritzker is doing, it's hypocritical. If he actually cared about you and I having access to care, he wouldn't have given the illegal immigrants free health care on free. Nothing's really free. It was on your dime and my dime. Okay, so he's not concerned about access to care. Like, let's be real here. If he was seriously concerned about Illinoisans having access to health care, he wouldn't have given away billions in health care to illegal immigrants, people who shouldn't even be here. So next, I want to talk about Governor J.B. Pritzker's meltdown, where he said, hey, we're going to lose critical access hospitals in central and southern Illinois, and they will shutter because of this bill. Let me ask you something. Who's been running Illinois into the ground for the last decade? It's not President Donald Trump. It's not Republicans. It's Governor J.B. Pritzker and his band of tax hiking, regulation-loving Democrats who have done nothing to fix a broken system, the broken healthcare system. Like I said, they've done nothing. They've made it worse, i.e. providing healthcare to illegal immigrants, people who shouldn't be here. So he's got no problem funneling, by the way, millions into Planned Parenthood, and God forbid we invest, or millions into Chris Welch's, the House Speaker, his district for a sports complex facility at a school district. They've got no problem funneling $40 million, I think it was, into that, the sports complex. But God forbid they actually invest in rural hospitals or faith-based hospitals or rural medicine. They never do that. When they have the opportunity to do that, they don't do that now, the state of Illinois. So now he's coming out and he's blaming Washington for his failures. Like, give me a break. They've never invested. They never invested in rural medicine or these rural hospitals. It all goes to the Chicago hospitals, Northwestern, and all of that. So I want to get to our favorite topic, which is clean energy. Green energy, green weenie, garbage. So Governor J.B. Pritzker is claiming that this bill will harm the solar development and threaten jobs, yada, yada, yada. But here's what he's not telling you. His own green energy agenda has driven up electricity prices in Illinois fourfold. It's because it's not sustainable, and wind and solar doesn't work. And when you do that and you shut down all of the gas and the coal investments, and this was the Illinois Climate Equitable Jobs Act. It was championed by the governor in 2021. What that did, it shut down natural gas and coal investments and forced utilities to chase renewables and line the pockets, really, of green grifters, while everyday families had to struggle with their bills. Okay, it's just not sustainable. The wind and solar can't keep up with the demand. Not to mention, the only people who are getting rich off of the green energy scam, it is the green grifters and the Chinese who create these solar panels and windmills. Okay, so the state is losing manufacturing jobs, always has been, to places like Tennessee, Indiana, and these places all still believe in baseload power. If you want to look at Rivian actually in Normal, they built out a new plant in Georgia. They didn't expand here in Illinois. They have one in Normal, Illinois, a plant, their original plant, but then they expanded and they have a plant in Georgia. Why? Because they believe in natural gas and coal. And look, you got to run electricity for manufacturing plants. And when there's the looming threat of blackouts because you've transitioned off of natural gas and coal to renewables, the solar energy and the wind energy, it's not sustainable. And businesses and the industry understands that. So Governor J.B. Pritzker says he's worried about energy costs going up and job losses. Don't believe him for a second. The job killer actually lives in the governor mansion, and that's Springfield, and it's because of the taxation. That's the true job killer, is the overtaxation, the tax and spend Democrats in Springfield. That's the true job killing, because none of these businesses want to stay here because of the overtaxation. The corporate income tax is really, really high. The property tax is really high. There's this looming threat of blackouts. How do you run a manufacturing facility, even an electric vehicle manufacturing facility, without reliable power? So speaking of hypocrisy, let's move on over to Dickie Durbin. He posted this. So he said, taking health insurance away from 17 million families and closing rural hospitals is a hell of a way to make America great. Well, Senator, you know what else is a hell of a way to destroy America? Enabling open borders, supporting sanctuary cities and sanctuary policies, rubber stamping inflationary spending, which the Inflation Reduction Act did. Most likely, well, I know that the BBB takes away the electric vehicle tax credit, which is why Elon Musk is all in a tizzy and is starting a fight again with Donald Trump. So he's in a tizzy over that. And of course, all of Silicon Valley and these big tech bros are all upset because there's no EV tax credits in it. And what the Inflation Reduction Act did under President Joe Biden gave out like $7,500 in tax credits. Well, guess what happened shortly after that tax credit went out? The Ford, they actually raised the prices of their electric vehicles by $8,000. So you see, the EV tax credit's not good. It causes inflation. And that's why the BBB takes all that out. And I think this is so funny, Senator Dick Durbin. You didn't seem too worried about hospitals when COVID mandates shut down churches, and you left abortion clinics wide open, but the churches had to close down. You weren't concerned about the health of children when you were wanting to force vaccines on 5-year-olds. So these people do not care about how hospitals or health or anything like that. What they really care about is the money. The money. The big pharma, and hospitals are like this. They care about the money. So they didn't do anything to stop fentanyl pouring into our border, killing hundreds of thousands of Americans a year. They are the true destroyers of America and of Illinois. Governor J.B. Pritzker is right up there because he, of course, provided free healthcare. You and I paid for healthcare for illegal immigrants. These people don't care about your health. They did all kinds of things like COVID and vaccine mandates, which is not good for your health. They silenced people who talked about ivermectin. Why? Because big pharma, Pfizer, Moderna, these are the people who are in their pockets, and they didn't want you talking about ivermectin. These people do not give a hoot about your health. So spare me the sanctimony now. Okay. Now, here's where I want to bring it home biblically, folks. As Christians, we are called to we are called to be care and have empathy for the poor. As Christians, it's not so much empathy. I would say it's more so love. We are called to love the poor. Okay. And love isn't empathy. Those two words are not the same. Okay. Love means you are going to say, hey, permanent dependency, this is not good for you. That's not compassionate. Okay. Caring doesn't mean creating permanent dependency on these programs. It doesn't mean stealing from working families to bankroll bad policies. And it certainly doesn't mean rewarding lawlessness. Okay. We are stewards, we are defenders of family, the community, and the truth. And sometimes that means making hard choices. And having empathy or whatever is fine, but we aren't called to empathy. We are called to love thy neighbor, right? And love is God. And God tells us who he is in his word. And I'm telling you right now, sometimes making these hard choices is love. Scaling back bloated programs, asking able-bodied men to go to work, and men without dependent or women without dependents, okay? And saying no to politicians who confuse compassion with control. We have to say no to those people. They want to control the grid. They want to control the energy. They want to control the healthcare industry. And when you subsidize the healthcare industry, you have control over it. When you regulate the energy sector to where it's just wind and solar, then you control the energy sector. You see what this is all about? It's communism. Okay, so Pritzker and his friends, they will have you believing that Christian charity requires government bureaucracy, and no, it doesn't. Jesus did not outsource compassion to Rome. Okay, he called you and I to love. And he didn't really call us to be compassionate or empathetic. Really, what we're called to do is love one another. And sometimes that means telling somebody, hey, if you love somebody, you tell them that, hey, you have some spinach in your teeth. If you love somebody, you tell them, hey, I really don't think that job is good for you. You know, sometimes it's a hard conversation. If you truly love somebody, hey, I don't think that person's right for you. Sometimes love is about having hard conversations and making hard choices. And in this case, in the BBB, it's about scaling back bloated programs. It's about making sure able-bodied workers, able-bodied people are going to work, young people are going to work for at least 20 hours if they want the SNAP benefit, okay? You have to try. That's what this BBB is all about. And it incentivizes real work. That is the big part of this, is that, hey, no tax on tips, overtime. There's a theme here. And Donald Trump says, enough with this weird, we're going to force people into EVs by providing tax credits. We're going to force the economy to do what we want, which is control. He doesn't want that. He just wants freedom. Okay. And this big, beautiful bill, for all of its imperfections, represents a turning point back to accountability, a turning point back to real work and personal responsibility. So what can you do? Pray. Number one, always pray for your leaders, even the ones you disagree with. I pray for Governor J.B. Pritzker every single day. So do I pray for Dick Durbin, Tammy Duckworth, the people who are in office, because God can soften the hearts and restore wisdom. And I don't know about you, but I'm thinking my prayers are being heard. And here is an answer to one of my prayers. And I got to tell you this, because this is really quite interesting. So Governor J.B. Pritzker at a press conference yesterday, it was, he is quoted Center Square, and he's quoted saying that he is going to remain prayerful. So here's the direct quote. And I think that this is an answer to prayer. And I'm just going to say it's an answer to prayer. I'm just going to believe that and step out in faith and say that this is an answer to prayer. I think that JB might wind up a Christian. And here's why. So he says, quote, I'm prayerful, I guess, that something will intervene. I have to admit, I'm pessimistic about Washington, D.C. and their ability to do the right thing. So he kind of walked away from saying he was prayerful, okay, and saying something will intervene. So I don't know. I don't think that Governor J.B. Pritzker is a Christian. He says that he's Jewish. I'm not sure exactly his religious beliefs. But through accepting Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior and bending the knee, the Holy Spirit will come on him and he will totally have a different outlook on life. And he wouldn't be pro-communism, pro-socialism, and want all this control. So I read that and I'm like, okay, I think there's some answer to prayer that's happening right now. Is Governor J.B. Pritzker grappling with his religious convictions and his religious, because he says, I'm prayerful, I guess, or and then he goes, I think something will, or that something will intervene. So he doesn't name it. He doesn't say God. He never talks about God. I've never heard him once mention the name Jesus. And I have to agree with him. I am also pessimistic about Washington, D.C. and their ability to do the right thing. So I'm not completely against Governor J.B. Pritzker, folks. I pray for the fellow all the time. Is he a terrible governor? Yes. Do we need to vote him out come 2026? Of course, until he bows his knee and professes Christ as Lord and has a complete 360. Does a complete 180, I guess. You don't want to go right back to where you started, but we need to stay informed. We need to read the BBB, because once you read it, you do realize that there are some poison pills in this. I will get to the Second Amendment thing. There's something in there that I really don't like. And always, and most importantly, vote your values at a local level, state level, and national level. Governor J.B. Pritzker said to a group of reporters, I think about the 2026 elections, I think about the 2028 elections, and he's hopeful that we can change course. And I don't want to change course, because we are winning. As Christian conservatives, we are winning. And Governor, we know that the 2026 elections are coming up. We know that the 2028 elections are coming up, and we are ready. We are ready to continue on course. I do want to get to, like Governor J.B. Pritzker said, I am pessimistic about Washington, D.C.'s ability to do things right. Overall, the concept of the BBB, I absolutely love. Accountability, personal responsibility, work, transitioning people off government dependency, getting rid of these inflated tax credits of picking losers, really. So under the Biden administration, they gave EV tax credits. People don't really want EVs. I'm sorry. That might ruffle some feathers, but look at the numbers. Most people don't buy electric vehicles. They're not affordable. And most people don't buy electric vehicles because there's not the current infrastructure to charge your vehicle. So they're just not popular. They try to make it popular because they want to control you. They want to control what you drive, and they want to say, hey, we want you in this. We want you in an electric vehicle. Now, they did the same thing with the food processing plants by providing them tax credits to make more of the soy crap. Okay, they want to control what you eat as well. So today we're taking a deep dive into the BBB, because there is a sneaky little trick that Congress is trying to pull here. They're trying to sell you this blue state bailout, is what I'm going to call it. It's a blue state bailout in the big, beautiful bill. And it's snuck in there. And spoiler alert, this part is not beautiful. This part is not big, unless you're talking about a big hand sticking its hand right into your back pocket and taking money from you. Big. This is a big deal. This is not good, though, in the BBB. Today's topic, the resurrection of the SALT deduction cap. And I'm not talking about the seasoning salt. I'm talking about state and local taxes. So the state and local taxes deduction cap, they want to raise it. We're talking about a $1 billion federal giveaway that favors rich people in high tax states. So who are those types of people? Those are your big time lawyers in Chicago. Those are your real estate people in Chicago, Naperville, Evanston. Okay, those types of people. They're going to see a tax break. Okay, but they're only in high tax states. So these are probably going to be your blue voters, rich blue voters, your donors, your Democrat donors. Okay, so this is a federal giveaway. that favors the rich in high-tax states like Illinois, and it's all done at your expense. So it's going to be a wild one. So let's roll with that here. When I come back, I'm going to take a quick break. Be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, share this out with your friends. I will take some of your comments here on the other side. Hang on just a second. Welcome to Conservative Cat Clips, where the claws come out and the truth lands hard. I'm your host, Cat. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on something that ought to make every Illinois taxpayer's blood boil. You're funding the abortion industry, and the abortion industry is very, very funded by the state of Illinois. So we're going to be zooming in on Illinois. What used to be the land of Lincoln is now the Midwest's abortion sanctuary. Under Governor J.B. Pritzker, Illinois has gone full throttle into becoming what he proudly calls the beacon for reproductive rights. Translation, come one, come all. Have your abortions here, and the taxpayers are going to pick up the tab. In 2019, Governor J.B. Pritzker signed the so-called Reproductive Health Act, making abortion, quote, a fundamental right in Illinois. But that wasn't all. He also repealed the Parental Notification Act for minors getting abortions. So that means little Susie, if she's 12 years old, she doesn't need her parents' permission to go get an abortion. Your 13-year-old daughter can get an abortion in Illinois, even without you knowing. And while Illinois families are struggling with inflation, property taxes, and rising crime, guess where your tax dollars are going? The last few years, just tens of millions of dollars of Illinois taxpayer dollars have gone to Planned Parenthood in just a few years, tens of millions of dollars. And they're not going to just fund the procedure itself. They're paying for out-of-state women to come here and abort their babies. It includes transportation, lodging costs, and logistical support, whatever the hell that means. I'm probably paying for some woman to get a McDonald's sandwich while she's here in the state. And literally, we're running a state-sponsored abortion tourism business. That's what we're doing here in the state. And let's not forget Planned Parenthood CEO salaries. Over $670,000 for Alexis McGill Johnson. Regional directors, they make about like six figures too. So your paycheck is shrinking, their paycheck is growing, and your roads have potholes, but Planned Parenthood thriving. Pritzker loves to pose as a champion for women, but let's be honest, this isn't even about ideology. It's about power and money. He's not protecting women. He's protecting Planned Parenthood's bottom line and all of these people raking in that CEO cash. And Illinois is now the abortion capital of the Midwest because he made it that way. Governor J.B. Pritzker. Illinois used to be about opportunity and family values. Now it's the go-to state for late-term abortion. Over 46,000 abortions in Illinois were done in 2022 or 2023 alone. 46,000 in Illinois alone, and many of you paid for that. And under Governor J.B. Pritzker, that number is just going to keep going up and up and up every single year. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. I'm Cat, reminding you that taxpayer-funded abortion is not compassionate. It's corruption. And all of these people are making tons of money. And it's time we demand real leadership. It's time we step up and demand that they stop funding this madness. It's time we stand for life here in the state of Illinois. What do you think? Hey, good morning. This is Conservative Cat, and we are talking about the big, beautiful bill, the BBB, and there are some nasty things in there. Really quick, I do want to talk about some iffy things in the big, beautiful bill. There is something that pertains to the Second Amendment, and I'll get to this a little bit later. We are going to get to SALT deduction cap being raised, but first, let's talk about this. This is interesting. Tucked inside of the sweeping big, beautiful bill is a contentious provision that would eliminate the $200 federal tax on firearm suppressors, okay, and short-barreled rifles. Okay, so suppressors, by the way, they are a safety feature on a gun. It protects your ears. This is like PPE, protective equipment, okay? And a lot of people on the right and gun rights advocates are saying that this is a win, okay? That they eliminated the $200 federal tax. There's a federal tax stamp that you have to get. Now they eliminated it and they zeroed that out, the $200 federal tax stamp, okay? So there are some gun advocates like the NRA who are saying that this is a great thing, but there are gun rights advocates who are saying, hey, this is actually anti-Second Amendment. National groups support the tax repeal, and they say that this is a step towards deregulation, zeroing out that $200 tax. We need to get rid of it altogether because you still need the tax stamp. So that's what's interesting here. It's still like putting the short-barreled rifles and the suppressors on a registry of sorts. So they are under strict federal control still. So this is nothing to really be praised, in my opinion. Zeroing out that tax, sure, whatever. But we need to get rid of the stamp altogether. The government should have no business in knowing and registering your suppressors and your short barrel rifles. This is a sound thing, okay? When you're out there on the range shooting, it's nice to have a suppressor on it. Now, here in the state of Illinois, there's a suppressor ban, and that's all tied up in the courts, so there's a whole other can of worms to that. But really what this is doing in the BBB, it's offering the illusion of reform while entrenching unconstitutional registry requirements. So they're out there, the NRA is praising this, and they're saying, oh, we zeroed out that federal tax. Okay, but there's still a tax stamp that you have to get if you want a suppressor or a short-barreled rifle. Shall not be infringed is pretty freaking clear to me, and I don't care what I put on my gun. Any kind of safety protections I put on my gun, it's my business, and the federal government has no business knowing what I'm doing with my gun. Okay, so that's in the BBB. What needs to happen is that entire stamp gets taken out completely, and I don't care that it's zeroed out, because really what this is, it's an illusion that they are reforming, or that they are deregulating, or that the government is stepping off of the suppressors and short-barreled rifle regulation, and really they're not. So we're going to get to the SALT deduction cap today. A little bit later, I might touch on that. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Let me get to some of your comments. Okay. EV mandate is a commie grift mandate, like the climate mafia. Yeah. So, like I said, it is, I mean, if I had to sum up the Inflation Reduction Act this is like the antithesis to and I think that Donald Trump did this on purpose. He called it the BBB, the Big Beautiful Bill, Big Beautiful Bill. Yeah, the one Big Beautiful Bill. Joe Biden called, and I think this was part of his Build Back Better package. It's been so long, I can't remember, but the Inflation Reduction Act, the Build Back Better. So Trump is trolling the Biden administration by saying this is a big, beautiful bill, BBB. So the Build Back Better package, what this was, it was the Inflation Reduction Act, the American Rescue Plan Act, all of that was really, really bad stuff. And if I had to sum up the Inflation Reduction Act, there's nothing better. Just look at the EV tax credits, the $7,500 that they were giving to people to go buy electric vehicles. And then what did the companies do? They said, oh, because the government is subsidizing it, we'll be able to raise our prices. They raised their electric vehicle prices, I think Ford did, by $8,000. So, yeah, the tax credit stuff is just bogus. I don't even really like it when we do tax credits for specific industries. Governor J.B. Pritzker is all about that. Rivian, they've had all kinds of tax credits. There's like... Ron DeSantis does it too. We're going to get to Ron here in just a second. Alligator, Alcatraz. We're talking about that today. Ron DeSantis does it too with semiconductors. I'm not a big fan of it. There's a state, I think it's Missouri, where they don't do tax credits like that for industries. You just keep your taxes low and then the businesses will come. Okay, so you don't run your state like a complete hellhole, and then the businesses won't leave. Okay, uh, and I get it. Like they want semiconductors, and they're trying to get specific industries to their states. That's what Ron DeSantis does. Governor J.B. Pritzker, he just picks losers. He's got a bad picker. I think it's picking winners and losers when you provide tax credits to certain industries. Now, with what Donald Trump is doing in the BBB, with the no tax on tips, this makes sense because we have to restore the food service industry and the no tax on overtime. We have to start to incentivize work again, because after COVID, that industry has been completely destroyed. I mean, anymore, people just do DoorDash or Grubhub, whatever, and there is no such thing as food service. It's really sad when you look at these smaller diners and the hit that they took during COVID-19. So that, I think, is different than providing tax credits to Goshen to the tune of $530 something million, the state level. At federal level, they did it as well under Joe Biden. This was a Chinese communist ties to the Chinese Communist Party, by the way. Goshen, the electric vehicle battery maker. So Governor J.B. Pritzker just happens to pick losers. Like I said, the EV industry, a lot of people don't buy electric vehicles. Like, that's just a cold hard fact. Don't believe me? Look at the issues Rivian has seen as far as profitability and getting the electric vehicles out the door. So yeah, they just pick winners and losers. Some people have better pickers than others. I don't like any of it. Now for the BBB, providing the no tax on tips, I think that's going to help revive an industry that's dying in a post-COVID world, post-COVID era. Let's get to SALT deductions. Like I said, I swear I'm going to get there. Really what this is, it's a federal giveaway to rich people in high tax states. So who are those people? Think about it. In Illinois, we are a high tax state. Who are the rich people? Those are your bankers, your real estate agents up in Chicago, or not agents, I would say your real estate gurus, your top guys in real estate in Chicago, and your law firms, your consultants, things like that. So these are people up in Naperville, Evanston. These are the wine moms. Okay, the people who continue to vote for Democrats. What they're getting is a tax break. Okay, so this is a wild one. Let's start with the basics. In 2017, President Donald Trump, he had a Tax Cuts and Job Act. Okay, so the federal government put a cap on how much state and local taxes, SALT, that's the SALT deduction, not the seasoning, SALT, you could deduct from your federal taxes. The cap was $10,000. Why? Because it made no sense for taxpayers in low tax states like Indiana and Tennessee to subsidize the luxury property taxes of millionaires in Manhattan and Chicago. Okay, so they put a cap on it in 2017 at $10,000. But now Congress, like, that's not much. Okay, I'm cool with the $10,000 cap. Now Congress, both Democrats and the establishment Republicans, are all on board with raising that cap to $40,000. Okay, for most people. Now, if you earn over $500,000 in income, you don't get the SALT deduction at $40,000. So for most people, you get the $40,000. And by most people, I mean for most people in that camp, your rich millionaires in Manhattan, Chicago, they're going to be getting the SALT deduction of $40,000 from their state and local taxes. So this was tucked in the big beautiful bill, and this is not good. It's not generous. It's not innocent. Don't be fooled by this. Center Square, they've got the tax foundation analyst, Catherine Lawhead. She says it plainly. This is a subsidy for high-income earners in high-tax states. Translation, it's a blue state bailout in disguise. The rest of us, folks in red counties, small towns, the rest of Illinois, rural communities, the working class, we have to foot the bill for their tax break, if that makes sense. So let's talk about Illinois. The model for how not to run a state, Pritzker stand. We have some of the highest property taxes in the country. I'm not exaggerating. It's brutal out there. Property tax bills kind of read like ransom notes these days. And you've got little to show for it because there's potholes and your school boards are all corrupt and there's ghost towns in Illinois because of the outmigration, because the property taxes are so high. So why are your taxes so high? The people in charge, Governor J.B. Pritzker and his cronies, they refuse to make any kind of real structural reforms to property taxes. And it's the pension debt. Okay, it's the pension stupid. The $140 billion they're not fixing. So they won't fix the bloated pension system. They won't rein in, these local governments who spend millions on things like the public library. The Bloomington Public Library was to the tune of $20-something million. The O'Neill Park Pool, which was close to $10 million in Bloomington. We got to rein in these local governments and we got to say, hey, you got to fix your basic infrastructure first. Some of these local governments are spending way too much on amenities over basic infrastructure, like getting off of the consolidated sewer system or transitioning from lake source water, which in Bloomington's case, they're still on lake source water, which is so dated. Most people aren't on lakes. I would say most municipalities aren't on lake source water. It's kind of a dated thing. Anyway, they sure as heck won't cut spending. Okay, the state of Illinois is not cutting spending. Our budget has ballooned to $55 billion this past year from $30 billion prior to Governor J.B. Pritzker taking over. Instead, they expect Washington, okay, by extension you, the federal taxpayers, to make it feel less painful for rich folks in Naperville and Evanston. That's what this SALT deduction is all about. The SALT deduction increase. It lets wealthy Illinois residents in these very nice suburbs like Naperville, these lawyers, the people who vote Democrat, okay? Let's be real, or donate to Democrats, the donors of Democrats, they get a write-off on their property taxes. And this is a blue state bailout, so that way they don't get mad and move to Florida. Okay, so the Democrats in Congress are pushing for this, as well as the establishment Republicans. And, there is no political pressure anymore for the state of Illinois or your local governments or your schools to change, because now you've got, the SALT deduction, $40,000. But really, this only applies to high earners in, Chicago. People who can itemize. So say you're a middle-class family in Effingham or Macon County, and you live in a modest home. Your property taxes are high, sure, very high, but they're under the $10,000 cap, okay? And you don't itemize your deductions. Like 90% of taxpayers don't itemize their deductions. Meanwhile, your taxes are going up at a local level, state level. The state's broke. They won't cut spending. You keep paying higher taxes and you're struggling to keep up. Now comes along this bill, the Big Beautiful Bill, this provision within the Big Beautiful Bill. It's a big bill. The millionaire in Lake Forest or Naperville gets a deduction of $40,000 because they own McMansions and, they have a fancy accountant and they're going to get to that threshold, the $10,000 cap. And they're going to get $40,000 a deduction, and the rich get a break. Okay, and you get left holding the bag because who pays for that deduction? It doesn't just come out of thin air. You and I pay for it, federal taxpayers. So that's what this is, plain and simple. Catherine Lawhead said this quote. She's quoted in the Center Square. Taxpayers across the board are covering the cost, even though it's only going to be even though it's going to those who qualify the deduction, the SALT deduction. So this isn't conservative. This is not Christian stewardship. The wealth protection masquerading as relief. Really, this is so that way the millionaires in Chicago and Manhattan don't leave and go to states like Florida where the property taxes aren't so high. Okay, this is a blue state bailout, Blue State Bailout. So let's talk about the national debt too, because you know what else the SALT scheme does? It adds to it big time, the national debt. So the SALT provision is not paid for. So there is no spending offset, no revenue increase to balance it out. And that's just going right on the national debt credit card. So that's the card you and your kids, and my kids are going to, and grandkids are going to have to pay off long after Governor J.B. Pritzker and Nancy Pelosi are retired in the Cayman Islands somewhere. Okay, so yes, it does raise the national debt, this provision within the BBB. As Christians, we believe in honest scales, okay? Accountability. Proverbs 13:11 says, wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. You don't fix a broken economy by robbing Peter to pay Paul and handing Paul a deduction slip, okay? That's not how you fix a broken economy. What we need to do in the state of Illinois is get our spending under control, fix the pension system, the broken pension system. We need to stop spending on stupid pet projects like the $40 million Chris Welch sports facility. And your local governments need to stop spending on stupid projects like a build out of a public library in the year 2025. Okay. I think it was in 2024 or 3. I can't remember. But recently, like, this is a public, like, everybody has a phone, my guy. Why the hell are we spending $20 million on that? Or on a pool when you live in Illinois, an aquatic center when you live in Illinois. Makes no sense. So this isn't compassion. This is theft dressed up in bipartisan clothing. So I want to ask you this question. Who in Congress is really fighting for you? The worker, the farmer, the small business owner, not the hedge fund guys who are writing off their third vacation home in Cook County, okay? And not the teacher union brass crying about poverty while they're collecting six-figure pensions, okay? Over six-figure. I mean, $200,000 District 87 Barry Riley is collecting in a pension, and he's no longer the superintendent, okay? And you look over at Peoria, the school superintendent there is making $100,000, but he's the current superintendent. That makes no sense, okay? So who in Congress is fighting for you? Not the hedge fund guys who are writing off their third vacation home in Cook County, not the teacher union brass or the administrators, the school administrators who are crying poverty while they're collecting, six-figure pensions. Okay, let's talk about who's really fighting for you. Those people who are working overtime, raising kids in a culture, by the way, that wants to poison your children and their minds. You're dealing with a lot, and Congress should be focused on lowering taxes across the board, not creating carve-outs for elites in broken states. And let's, make this clear. Say you're in a low tax state and you're a high earner. So you have, and I'm not against high earners. Like, yes, 100%. If you built up your wealth and you did it by the sweat of your brow and your blood, sweat, and tears, and you built up this business and you're making good money and you're a millionaire, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you live in a low tax state, like say Florida or Tennessee or Indiana, and you live in a low tax state, you aren't going to be able to get a break. Okay, so I wouldn't even be totally against this if it was just a break for high earners, okay? But it's not a break for high earners. It's specifically a break for rich people in blue Democrat strongholds. Okay, so I support the Trump agenda. I support the BBB. I like a lot of things in the BBB. I like the no taxes on tips. That's really exciting. I like the no taxes on overtime. But this provision needs to go. And the provision about the Second Amendment, the $200 federal tax that was eliminated, I want to be clear on the firearm suppressors and the short-barreled rifles. There was a tax on that. They zeroed out the tax, but there's still a stamp that you have to get if you have a short-barreled rifle or get a suppressor. You're still, and this is unconstitutional, participating in registry requirements. So while national groups like the NRA are out there, celebrating and woohoo, yeah, we got down the $200 federal tax. No, we need to eliminate it completely. And I don't know why Congress doesn't go far enough with this. I really don't understand it. Maybe it's the establishment Republicans who won't go far enough with this. But it's an illusion, folks. It's an illusion that we are reforming and that we are, pro Second Amendment, where and it's not actually reforming anything. It's just unconstitutional. So I don't know why, because we have the majority, right? Republicans have the majority. You would say Second Amendment advocates have the majority. Why the hell are we compromising and still have the stamp in there? And still have these registry requirements for suppressors and for short-barreled rifles. Like I said, this is protective equipment. Suppressors are not for, somebody to go in and silently shoot up a school. Okay. One, school shooting is very rare to begin with. Two, very rare that suppressors are for elderly people who are going out onto the range and trying to defend themselves and trying to hone their craft and hone a skill, so that way they can protect themselves without hurting their ears. So yeah, I want to get to Governor J.B. Pritzker's new lieutenant governor pick, but I will also be getting to alligator Alcatraz. Okay, so this is a migrant detention facility that has been set up in the Florida Everglades, and it was visited by President Donald Trump, and he loves alligator Alcatraz. Now, Ron DeSantis, I think there's been a few things where he's made some crazy headlines. He actually said something to the effect of, hey, if people are in your way, like ICE agents or anti-ICE protesters, if they are in your way, I think Florida sheriff said that. I don't know if Ron DeSantis said that. Maybe he did. I got to double check that. I'll check that in the break. But he's trying to run for president in 2028, Ron DeSantis. I'm not against it. I mean, sure, go for it again, Ron. You can give it a try. And I think that this whole alligator Alcatraz thing is a lot of posturing. It's pretty clear. Not that I'm against it. I think it's hilarious. I think it's good. Because it is going to serve as a deterrent, and I'll get to that here in just a second. But at the heart of the issue here, this is Ron DeSantis trying to make some headlines prior to a 2028 run. Now, I'll just say it now. If J.D. Vance is, a candidate, I will be definitely voting for J.D. Vance over Ron DeSantis. So... yeah, and he probably invited President Donald Trump to come and take a look at it. Like, you guys can see what's going on here. He's trying to make it look like he is going to get President Donald Trump's endorsement for 2028. That's the way I see it. I don't mind. I think that this swamp is a great idea. The swamp just got literal. Alligator Alcatraz. We're going to get to that here in just a second. Smash that like button. Share this out with your friends. I'll be right back.
Check your blind spots. Men love to call things out. Weakness, hypocrisy, failure. We're wired to spot threats and take action. But Jesus didn't say, never judge. He said, judge not, that you be not judged. Why? Because judgment without humility is a trap. It turns you into a sniper with a log jammed in your eye. Matthew 7 hits hard. Jesus calls out a man who sees a speck in his brother's eye, but ignores the plank in his own. He's not saying, don't correct. He's saying, clean your lens first. Self-examination before confrontation. It takes guts to get real with your own sin, to admit you've gone soft, to face your pride, lust, laziness, or bitterness head on. But that's what real men do. They sharpen themselves before they sharpen others. Jesus didn't just want behavior police. He wanted heart warriors. Men who get the plank out, then humbly help a brother see clearly. Men who don't just flex spiritual authority, but walk with spiritual maturity. In verse 6, it's about discernment. Don't toss holy things to pigs. Don't waste truth on ears that mock it. Know when to speak. Know when to walk away. Before you blast through your next workout, check your form. Same with life. Patriot Pump fuels clean, focused energy, but you've still got to show up. Power with purpose. Clarity with strength. That's how you train. That's how you lead.
Hey, good morning. I'm Conservative Cat. I appreciate you being here. Before we took the break, I was telling you about the scam. This was a Blue State Bailout. The SALT deductions this is a provision within the BBB. What it does, it raises that cap to $40,000. So it used to be $10,000 in 2017. That was under the Donald Trump 2017 tax cuts, the tax law in 2017. And now what it does, it raises that to $40,000. But who gets it? It's the rich people in blue strongholds and blue state strongholds, okay? Your New York's, your Chicago, Illinois, these people in Evanston, Naperville, the millionaires there, they're getting a bailout, really. And really what this does, it releases the pressure on our politicians at a state level and at a local level to lower the property taxes and to lower the tax burden here in the state of Illinois. This is a bailout. They won't address it, right? Because you're going to be able to deduct that. At least their donors are going to be able to deduct it. So really, this is a way to say, hey, Manhattan billionaire, Chicago billionaire, or millionaire, what we want you to do is stay in the state. Okay, and your Republican establishment folks, your Democrats in Congress, they did this on purpose because it keeps all the people in the state in power, like your Governor J.B. Pritzker's. They're all working together, right? Governor J.B. Pritzker is going to stay in power because these people aren't leaving. So your lawyers, your rich yuppie lawyers in Chicago aren't leaving for Florida because it's too expensive and because they can't make any money. So let's close this out through a biblical lens. Psalm 37:21 says, the wicked borrow and do not repay, but the righteous give generously. The government borrowing. So you and I are going to wind up paying for millionaire in Naperville, Evanston to get this SALT cap deduction, the $40,000 SALT cap deduction, which isn't even paid for, by the way, and it's just going to increase our national debt. These are for the fund. This deduction is for the hedge fund guys who are writing off their third vacation home in Cook County. Okay, this is for the teacher union brass who cry poverty, but they are making six-figure pensions. Okay, and biblically, the righteous give generously, but the wicked borrow. So from the rest of the federal taxpayers who are going to be on the hook for this. So, me in Lincoln, I live in Lincoln, Illinois, Logan County. My property taxes, they're high, but they're not nearly as high as somebody who's living in Naperville or Evanston. I would never be able to take a SALT deduction. And 9 out of 10 taxpayers don't take a SALT deduction. They don't itemize. They just take the standard deduction because they don't get to that threshold, okay, that $10,000 threshold. Now, those people in Naperville and, have multiple houses, they're going to get to that $10,000 threshold, and then they're going to get the $40,000 deduction. And if they get the $40,000 deduction, then they're like, okay, I'm going to stay in Illinois, and I'm going to continue to vote for Governor J.B. Pritzker because it's not too bad. Because I'm getting this sweet deduction on my back, okay, on the federal taxpayer back, because I'd never be able to qualify for this thing, but I'm still on the hook for it as a federal taxpayer because it's not paid for. Okay, so we have to give the deduction. The deduction doesn't come out of the air, right, out of thin air. So the government borrowing for selfish political cover, that's wickedness. So taxing one class of citizens to spare another, that's partiality. And scripture is very clear. You shall not be partial to the poor or defer to the great. That's Leviticus 19:15. So justice means equal weights, okay, equal measures. And it means transparent policy, fair taxation, and moral responsibility. Okay, so for example, the tithe. So the tithe calls everybody to 10%. Doesn't matter how much you make. Okay. You're to tithe to the church 10%. The Bible is very, very fair. God is fair. Justice means equal weights and measures. And this is not equal, this is partiality, because there's one group of people, a specific group of people, not even high earners in low tax areas. So say I was a high earner in Logan County, where my tax burden isn't nearly as much as like $10,000. Okay. If I just have a modest home in Logan County, but I'm a pretty high earner. Okay. I'm not going to get to that deduction requirement. I'm not going to get to that requirement where I would be able to take the 40,000. So it's really just for people who are in blue strongholds and big cities, typically blue cities, and who are millionaires. That's what this tax break, who this tax break is for, and that's not Christian. That's partial. It's not justice. It's not morally responsible. And our answer here is to pray against this thing. Call your representatives. Tell them to strip the SALT. Call Darren LaHood. Tell him to strip the SALT increase from the bill and demand real reform. Say, hey, while you're at it, strip SALT from the BBB. But also, we need real reform, which would be to reform the overtaxation that's going on here in the state of Illinois, their tax and spend habits. And in order to do that, we need you to run for governor. If we're going to do super chats here in just a second, smash that like button, subscribe. I'll take your chats. Who are you going to vote for governor out of the list that we have of Republican governors? I'll be honest with you. I would probably vote third party at this point. I really don't like any of the candidates that are going right now. I'll tell you who I'd vote for governor, and who I want for governor is Darren LaHood or Mary Miller. If she were to enter the race, I don't think she will. I think it's more likely that Darren LaHood would, but we'll have to see. I don't know. I'm sure somebody will come out. It's pretty early. I think somebody's going to come out and announce here soon. But right now, I don't know. Some of these candidates really wacky. So the big beautiful bill has a nice ring to it, but there are parts that are pure poison. Like I said, the SALT deductions, but also the firearm thing with the suppressors and the short barrel rifles and this tax stamp that's still there. Like, we have the Republican majority. Why the hell are we still doing this? So stay awake, stay engaged, and remember, we fight for freedom. And it starts really in your town. It starts in your state, your school board. Demand that they stop spending on stupid crap. Bloomington, why the hell are you spending on a public library in the year 2025? Okay, stop that. So demand accountability in your schools, in your local government. So let's get to alligator Alcatraz. I want to get to this today. Alligator Alcatraz. Let's dig in, because really I think what this is it's posturing. It's Ron DeSantis wants to run in 2028, and he came up with this incredible thing. It's a detention center, a migrant detention center. He set it up deep in the Florida Everglades, and President Donald Trump visited just this week, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Alligator Alcatraz, razor wire, tents, alligators, baby. So let's dig in. So here's the backdrop. Trump flew into this Dade Collier airstrip. This is a remote, overgrown, mostly unused strip of concrete deep inside the Big Cypress National Preserve. Okay, Big Cypress National Preserve, to visit what is now being called the Alligator Alcatraz migrant facility. So Trump flew into this airstrip. It's remote. It is not really used. Okay, it's mostly an unused strip of concrete deep inside of this big forest. Okay, and it is now being called the Alligator Alcatraz. He joined Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. Together, they showcased a project meant to hold thousands of illegal border jumpers in a remote, swampy patch of Florida's wilderness. Okay, so we're talking about tents to house up to, to provide cover, really. I wouldn't say housing. 5,000 migrants. So they got a ton of tents. There's no air conditioning. There's wired fences, razor wired fences, no luxury beds, no Netflix subscriptions, and it's just you, your deportation paperwork, and about 1 million mosquitoes, okay? And literal alligators, okay? There's a moat kind of around this thing, and there's alligators. So, of course, the left is melting down predictably, and honestly, folks, I mean, compared to the Ritz-Carlton set up under Biden, where illegals were able to get luxury hotel rooms in New York, this is what real enforcement looks like. Okay. This is more about deterrence. I wouldn't doubt that Florida never sees a border jumper, not a migrant, a border jumper ever again come into their state, because they'll know that they're going to be sent to a place where there's no AC, and they're going. Now, I want to be clear, they're not going to stay there for months at a time. Okay, this is a couple of days where they're going to be staying there in these tents. They're going to be sheltered. They're going to be probably provided food. So it's not like they're going to be starved to death or that this is inhumane. Now, you can't leave because there's alligators everywhere. You can't leave because there's razor wires. So you don't get to leave the remote location, the detention center, before deportation. So you don't get to leave. Trump, he was there, and he was actually joking about zigzagging. So I don't know. I've heard this before, where you have to zigzag in order to avoid a gator attack. I live in the Midwest. I've never had to avoid a gator attack, so I really don't know. But naturally, the media was acting like Donald Trump was calling for migrants to be fed to the animals and to alligators. Like, come on, get a grip. He was joking. But really, this is a deterrence. Now, I won't lie, it's a bit extreme, and it has to be because what this is a deterrence, and what this is a direct response to the federal failure that was the Joe Biden administration, where they opened the floodgates, and his administration gutted ICE enforcement and paralyzed Border Patrol and shipped hundreds of thousands of illegals to red states using federal buses and planes in the dead of night. I'm sure you remember that. That actually happened. And when that happens and you're a governor of your state and you have a select amount of resources, okay, to provide to your citizenry, and you've got these border jumpers who are siphoning off those resources and not contributing, I'd be pretty pissed if I was a red governor or a red state governor like Ron DeSantis. So this is what Ron DeSantis said. He said, fine, I'm going to take matters into my own hands, and I'm going to create a facility built on an old airstrip. And this is meant for fast track deportations, detentions, and removals. Most likely they're going to be there for a day or two. Okay. This is not months on end. Okay. You should have thought about it before border jumping. Okay. DeSantis even deployed military style judge advocates, essentially legal teams from the National Guard, to issue removal orders on site. So, these are legal teams from the National Guard. These people are going to be crafting these deportation orders in real time, so these people don't have to stay there for very long. Okay. It means faster deportations. That's what that means. And this is meant to not be a place where you treat somebody inhumanely. This is meant to be uncomfortable for a few hours or a couple of days. Okay. There's going to be fewer court backlogs. There's going to be less bureaucracy, and there's going to be no more hotel stays for border jumpers. Bottom line, no more luxury hotel stays for the border jumpers. They are going to be caught. They are going to be shipped. They are going to go to the tent. They are going to be met with National Guard legal teams, and they are going to draft up legal deportation orders, and then they're going to get them out of here very quickly. So this is smart. It's aggressive, yes, but that's the point. So there is, of course, pushback against the alligator Alcatraz. First, we have the environmentalists who are screaming, you're going to hurt the panthers and the manatees and the endangered creatures hiding out in the Everglades. Funny, you guys didn't seem to care too much about that when Biden was flying people into small towns like Springfield, Ohio, with no environmental review at all. Springfield, Ohio, not capable of handling what was it? I think it was like 20,000 or something crazy, thousands of illegals being shipped to this small little town. That has an extreme environmental impact when you overload the area hospitals, the sewer systems, the water. Like you weren't screaming about the environmental impacts, people pooping in the streets because there's not enough housing, and people are homeless. So for 20,000 people, right, in a small little town like Springfield, Ohio, when it was like 20,000, I think it was Haitian people who were flown into these small towns, there was no outrage from the environmentalists there. But the moment Florida, there's this abandoned airstrip, the moment Florida uses it for law enforcement, this is an ecological disaster. How could you? Right? Where were you? Where were you when the small towns were flooded with 20,000 people? Next up, of course, you've got your tribal leaders. So this is and I'm going to butcher this, Mukoshki, and the Seminole tribes. I don't know. They say the land is sacred. Now listen, I'll be the first one to say that I have a deep respect for real heritage. Okay. However, this is federal land. It always has been. It's been used. It's been used as federal land for a very long time. Okay. And this has been used for aviation and government storage for decades. Okay. So nobody complained about it being used by the government until a Trump sign went up, essentially, and until they decided to use it for this purpose. So your tribal leaders who are getting upset, this is sacred land. Okay, where were you when the government was using it for aviation for decades? Okay, done. I'm done with it. And of course, the media, NPR, called the facility controversial. This is controversial. Today we're going to talk about how to destroy the patriarchy. NPR. I don't know. They're just not a serious group of people. They said it was controversial. Protesters showed up calling it a prison camp. And of course, the ACLU is screaming at the sky, face turning red. Democrat lawmakers are practically holding like candlelight vigils outside at the tents. They don't have Wi-Fi, by the way, or air conditioning, and they're holding like little candles. Here's the question nobody really wants to ask. What's more inhumane, a temporary tent with a flight out of the country, or forcing American towns to absorb a wave of undocumented illegal border jumpers while DC politicians play games? That's unsustainable. That's inhumane. Overburdening the area hospitals in, for example, Springfield, Ohio, where you had that flood of Haitians come in, 20,000 or something like that, illegal immigrants come in. That is inhumane. Stacking people up on top of each other, and those areas are not designed for that. These small towns were not designed for that. That's inhumane. Temporary tent with a flight out of here for a couple of days, you are going to be just fine. It's going to be better than probably the country you came from. Look, this isn't about cruelty. It's also about deterrence. Like I said, this is a move by Ron DeSantis to really deter. I'm willing to bet that there's not going to be a ton of people in these tents because now word's gotten out that, hey, if you border jump in Florida, you are going to be sent to alligator Alcatraz, and that might not be so comfortable. And, they're not going to go because they might border jump maybe in, a blue state like California, because they'll get a comfy ride to a hotel. They'll get taxpayer-funded benefits. But guess what? More people come when you do that. Okay, when you do things like California does, when you do things like Illinois does, and it's unsustainable. More and more people will come if they hear that your state is offering taxpayer-funded health care. Of course, they're going to come. So. And they're going to get a comfy ride to a luxury hotel and get a taxpayer-funded hotel in New York. Hell, I'm going to go to New York. I'm going to border jump over in New York and get to New York. That's what they're going to think twice about doing it in Florida. And it's really not cruelty. What this is, it's consequences, and we need more of that in America. Now, I do understand that this is most likely posturing, political posturing by Ron DeSantis. He's likely going to be running in 2028. Good for him. I think it's funny. And I think that it's needed. Deterrence is needed. Consequences are needed. And maybe, just maybe, the American people are finally waking up to the disaster that is the open border crisis and was the open border crisis. And ICE is cracking down on it, and Ron DeSantis is cracking down on it in his state. Good for him. Here's the question we should be asking. There are questions, legitimate concerns I do have about the facility. Was the facility properly reviewed for emergency preparedness? Say a hurricane season is approaching. We don't want people dying, okay, on American soil because of our lack of emergency preparedness. Are we protecting due process for the, and now due process, there's not really due process if you're an illegal immigrant. I'm just going to be honest with you. There's no such thing as due process for an illegal immigrant. So, for example, if you are a felon, okay, you are no longer able to have a Second Amendment right, which I don't really necessarily agree with, because we shouldn't be taking the Second Amendment right. Those are rights endowed by a creator. But in this country, that's what we do. Felons are not able to have weaponry. So you forfeit your human rights, and I don't like it, and I wish it would change, but that's the way we kind of roll here in America, is you forfeit once you commit crimes, your ability to participate in society. So that's the way we do it here in America. There is due process for American citizens. You aren't afforded due process if you are an American citizen. And I think that we have to make the determination if they are, in fact, an asylum seeker, and there's a specific definition for asylum seeker. Asylum, when you come from one country to the United States. You don't get to choose the United States after you've been to 100 different countries, okay? Asylum, religious persecution, political persecution. If you are fleeing a country because of that and you're seeking asylum, we have to vet and make sure that they're not just border jumpers, okay, and that they actually are here on a student visa or a work visa, or they're attempting to get a green card, okay? So legitimate asylum claims, we have to make sure that these detainees have legitimate asylum claims, or aren't people who have legitimate asylum claims, okay? We want to make sure that we're detaining people who are supposed to be deported, okay? So is FEMA funding this operation fairly, or are Florida taxpayers going to be stuck with the tab? So Florida taxpayers, are they paying for Ron DeSantis to really politically posture? Because, I mean, this is not really needed. You know what I mean? Like, it's a red state. It's not extremely neat. I appreciate the deterrence aspect of this. I appreciate the, hey, I'm done. Enough is enough. I appreciate it. Is it really needed? And is the federal government funding this? Like I said, immigration is a federal type of issue, okay? Ron DeSantis should not be getting into this arena where he is participating as a member of ICE, or like having Florida be ICE agent, okay? There's, not impeding ICE agents, what we do here in the state of Illinois and then the state of New York, California, where they will interfere with federal immigration laws. But, your role as a state is to enforce state laws and let the federal government pick up the tab for enforcing federal enforcement, federal laws. So those are all valid concerns. There are questions that we could ask here, but the biggest question is, why did it take so long to get serious about enforcement? Now, is Ron being too serious about enforcement? I don't know. I think that it's just right. But every day we wait to get serious about federal enforcement, Americans pay the price, whether it's through fentanyl, pouring in over through the border, violent crime, labor disruption, or the cultural breakdown of these border towns and border states. So Americans paid the price. And I think that Ron DeSantis is just saying enough is enough. And Alligator Alcatraz is a response to a dysfunctional system, a dereliction of duty at top levels of the federal government. This is a response to years of that. And I can't blame him. We do need to make sure that FEMA is funding this and that the Florida taxpayers aren't funding it, because it is on the federal government to enforce federal immigration laws. It isn't on the state to do that. They shouldn't interfere, and they should assist with enforcement of federal immigration laws, because they are states within the United States of America. However, I don't like the idea of Florida taxpayers having to pay for this, because at the end of the day, it's a red state. They're not interfering with law enforcement and with ICE agents. And I think ICE agents are pretty capable of carrying out their own deportations. And the state of Florida is kind of acting as an ICE facility here, or making their own ICE facility, which I can appreciate. And let's remember, this is a response. So let's wrap this up biblically. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Biblically, God created nations. Okay, he created borders. He gave each tribe a tongue and a place to dwell. Order is not oppression, it's design. God is a God of order, and he is amazing. It's really cool when you really think about how orderly everything is. Like, for example, the trees need us and we need the trees. The trees produce oxygen. We breathe in oxygen. The trees need carbon dioxide. We breathe out carbon dioxide. Like, that is such order, and there is such rhythm to this planet. And it's because he's the ultimate designer. Scripture tells us in Acts 17 that God determined the times set for them in the exact places where they should live. Okay, that includes nations having sovereignty. Okay, that includes defending your home. You wouldn't allow somebody to come in and raid your refrigerator in your house, and you have a door on your house, because you believe in sovereignty when it comes to your home. There's sovereignty when it comes to nations. Open borders are not compassionate. It's chaos. They destroy families. They destroy justice. They empower cartels, not the poor. Okay, they don't help the poor people at all. In fact, I would say it's human trafficking, human smuggling, what these nonprofit organizations have done to smuggle these people in here. Essentially, it's like state-sanctioned human trafficking. It's disgusting, and it's not love. It's not compassion. This is lawlessness. As Christians, we are called to care for the foreigner, but not at the expense of the truth, order, and safety of people that we should be protecting. Okay, like I said, love. We're called not to empathy, but to love one another. And love sometimes is the harsh conversation. Hey, you got to go back home, and you got to go back where you came from. We don't have room for you. Okay, sometimes that's love. Alligator Alcatraz is not a symbol of cruelty. It's a sign that someone somewhere is finally saying enough is enough. We are not going to put up with border jumpers here in the state of Florida. So I've got to take a quick break, but we are going to come back, and I promised you that we were going to talk about Governor J.B. Pritzker's lieutenant governor pick, Christian Mitchell. Hit the like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe right now to the channel. I will be taking your chats. Let me know who you would pick as governor for the state of Illinois. Do you know who your Republican gubernatorial candidates are? I would not select any of them. There is nobody in this race, the Republican race, that I would select on my ballot. I know that says something, but I'm sorry. I wouldn't do it. I'd do a write-in maybe. I don't know. But I think that somebody's going to enter the race. So we don't have to worry about it much. But here on the Conservative Cat Show, we are going to be talking about Christian Mitchell. He is now going to be, he was picked as the running mate for Governor J.B. Pritzker. And we'll talk more about his background here next. Smash that like button. I'm going to be right back. Conservative Cat Clips, where the claws come out and the truth is on tap. I love the truth. I'm your host, Cat, and we are cutting through the holy hypocrisy and setting the record straight from the big lie that is pushed by the left. The Bible supports illegal immigration. Oh, really? Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because guess what? We're walking through Scripture, and we're going to provide you some common sense. Now, every time we talk about the border security, some activist grabs the Bible and says, Jesus was a refugee. Okay, sweetie, let's clear this up. Jesus wasn't hopping the fence or dodging border patrol. Okay, his family fled legally under laws of the land. There's a big difference between seeking refuge and violating the country's sovereignty. The Bible is crystal clear about this. God is a God of law and order, and he's just so awesome. Man, I could just jump for Jesus every morning. Not chaos, not loopholes. God is not a God of that. God is a God of order, and everything has a place. Romans 13, 1-2 says, let every person be subject to governing authorities. Whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed. Okay, translation, the nation has immigration laws, okay, and they're not being followed. Smuggling people across the borders, overstaying your visa, and lying to get in, that's not compassion, that's rebellion, okay? And now, yes, the Bible says care for the stranger. Absolutely, but here's the kicker. In ancient Israel, the sojourner or foreigner was expected to obey the laws of the land. Here's Numbers. Numbers 15, verse 16 says, one law shall be for you and for your stranger who sojourns with you. There was one law, one standard. Not, oh, well, they meant well, let them break the rules. Nope, that's not it. There was one law shall be for you and for the stranger who sojourns with you. That's what Numbers 15, verse 16 says. And you are welcomed always, but you have to respect the system. You are welcomed when you respect the system. Okay, so let's talk about Nehemiah, the wall builder himself. He didn't pray away the invasion. He got up and he built the walls of Jerusalem to protect his people, not out of hate, but out of duty to his nation and to God. Tell that to an open borders bishop the next time they scream, build bridges, not walls. Build bridges, not walls. Okay, Nehemiah, he was a wall builder. The Bible also teaches us the importance of national identity, borders, and responsibility. And responsible governance. God divided the nations at Babel, and he assigned lands to tribes, and there was order. Not this open range global free-for-all, which is exactly what the left wants. So now the Bible doesn't bless law breaking just because someone has a sad story. Okay? It demands we show compassion within the boundaries of justice. Just kind of like how Jesus and God are. God is a merciful God. God is also a God of justice. Illegal immigration is not mercy. It's disorder, it's deception, it's disrespect for the very nation God entrusted you to protect. Okay, so leftists, listen up. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. I'm Cat. The Bible commands compassion, not chaos. Laws, not loopholes. Justice is demanded, not just your feelings. Okay, so let's stop twisting scripture to fit your socialist slogans. Build walls, build bridges, not walls. And let's start reading the truth and the true backbone of this scripture. And look at the several examples which show us that illegal immigration is not condoned in the Bible. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. Thanks so much. Hey, you're listening to Conservative Cat. Hit the subscribe button right now and follow me on social media. I do want to talk about Christian Mitchell. So Governor J.B. Pritzker, you know him, the billionaire, tax riser, mask mandator, the guy who locked down churches but kept the pot shops open. He's launching a third term campaign, and he picked his running mate. And trust me, this guy isn't just some background bureaucrat. He is a political insider with deep roots in the Chicago machine specifically. So say hello to Christian Mitchell, the man who was groomed by Madigan's cronies, greased by green energy lobbyists, and he is handpicked to, quote, take on Donald Trump, as Pritzker proudly declared this week. So let's break it down. Christian Mitchell, he's not some new face, okay? He Air National Guard, okay? This guy is a veteran of the Illinois Democrat establishment, okay? So he served in the Illinois House from 2013 to 2019. Then he became deputy governor under Governor J.B. Pritzker, and before that, he was the executive director of the Democratic Party of Illinois under, yes, you guessed it, Michael Madigan, who was the chair of the Democrat Party. Yes, that Michael Madigan. So the same Madigan whose corruption trial is hanging, still hanging like a storm cloud over Springfield. You don't get tapped for that kind of job, the executive director job, unless you are a man made for the machine, a man made for the machine. So he got tapped for that job in the Illinois Democrat Party, and he was under Michael Madigan. Okay, and then he also served in the Illinois House from 2013 to 2019. Now, Governor J.B. Pritzker wants us to believe that Mitchell is up for the fight against Donald Trump. Let that sink in for a second. Governor J.B. Pritzker isn't talking about leading Illinois. He's not talking about fixing crime or cutting taxes or helping working families. He's talking about fighting Trump. So Pritzker is not building a ticket for Illinois. He is building a war room for 2026 and beyond. So what he's doing, Christian Maxwell definitely going to be capable of, blue state guy. He's going to be just fine if Governor J.B. Pritzker steps onto Air Force One in 2028 when he runs for president. So that is the type of pick that he chose, somebody who could keep the machine going if he is absent or gone, the Illinois machine going. So Illinois, Governor J.B. Pritzker is using Illinois as a national launch pad. Let's take a look at this. This is Christian. Meet Christian. This is an ad. Here we go.
I'm Christian Mitchell, and I am so excited to be your next lieutenant governor. I was really lucky growing up. I was raised by a wonderful mother who was a nurse for 38 years in the NICU at Rush University Hospital.
This is really reminiscent of Kamala Harris's campaign. By the way, her campaign videos when she launched her race for president in 2024. I just had to throw that in there. I mean, this looks almost identical to that campaign video here.
I had a grandfather who stepped in and filled the void for me and was a sergeant in the U.S. Army and a union steelworker. They both taught me what it was like to care about your family and work really hard, how you continue to move forward in difficult times. That's why I wanted to go into public service, because as difficult as life can be, I believe it can be a little bit easier if you've got leaders in government who care about working families, making life more affordable, making healthcare more accessible.
As a state representative, as the deputy governor of this state, Christian Mitchell has gotten so much done for people. And I know when we've got to take on Donald Trump and overcome the challenges he's bringing to our state, that Christian Mitchell is up for that fight.
When JB was first running for office, he promised that he was going to think big. And that is exactly what he has done as our governor. I am so excited to be joining JB in this moment because it's more critical than ever. We've made a lot of progress in the last 8 years, but we have to protect that progress. And together, we will always stand up for Illinois.
As the people of Illinois get to know Christian better, they're going to see somebody who cares deeply about the working families of Illinois, about the middle class, and fighting for our most vulnerable. He's done it for his whole career, and now he'll do it as our lieutenant governor.
Oh, gosh, that was exhausting. So here's what Pritzker's doing. He is stacking the deck here with loyal foot soldiers like Mitchell when he is leaving. Pritzker is planning on leaving. He wants the 2028 presidential run, I think. And he has thrown somebody in there who, of course, was greased by the machine, is the machine, 2013 to 2019, served as the executive director of the Democrat Party of Illinois under drumroll please, Michael Madigan. And he's, of course, greased by the green energy lobbyists and groomed by the Michael Madigan cronies. So let's talk about Mitchell. He helped shove through this Climate Equitable Jobs Act 2021. Like I said, this was a $45 billion boondoggle wrapped in green virtue signaling. Okay, you remember this. This is what caused your energy prices to go up astronomically. Okay, so solar subsidies, all of that for connected cronies, wind contracts tied to woke investors, and the equity part, the Climate Equitable Jobs Act, that's just more bureaucracy, hiring, more hiring quotas, less accountability. It's just bureaucracy to oversee the Climate Equity Jobs Act, and that's what that meant, the equity part. So this guy helped push this $45 billion capital bill. You know what that means. Concrete was poured for political favors. Infrastructure, sure, but it's always the same story in Illinois. Contracts for the connected and crumbs for the rest. Okay, so you get contracts to put up these solar panels and to put up these windmills, and these are the buddies, the people who will turn around and then donate to Democrats. Okay, they get the contracts because they're connected, but you get crumbs. Okay, and when Pritzker says he's a guy who knows how to get big things done, translation, this guy knows how to move money. He knows how to move votes and legislation, and he knows how to pull strings. So let's go back in time. Christian Mitchell, he rose really under Michael Madigan, right? And that tells you all you really need to know is that this guy, this man, is shaped by a culture of absolute control. So he came up under the era of Michael Madigan, when Michael Madigan was in his heyday. Loyalty, not transparency. That's where Christian Mitchell was born from. This era, obedience, not independence. And now he's the new face of Pritzker's next chapter. So he's probably going to be your next governor. I don't know. Pritzker's going to be running in 2028. We'll have to see what happens there. I don't think that Pritzker's going to win the presidency, but I think that his political career would probably be pretty much over after the 2028 presidency. So Christian, Pritzker said he's gotten a lot done for people. Really, I don't know what people you're talking about, Governor JB, because the inner city kids who are dodging bullets in the Chicago public schools, they can't read or write or do math at grade level. The families crushed under the highest property taxes in the nation. The small business owners who are being chased out due to overregulation. I don't know who Christian Mitchell has really helped. But I'm not seeing, which people is he helping? Okay, let's not pretend that this is about people, this is about power. And we know what's going on here. Lieutenant Governor Stratton said she's running for a Dick Durbin seat shortly after he announced that he was going to retire. And she was not in it because she didn't want to continue with the lieutenant governor seat or run alongside Governor J.B. Pritzker again, because she sees the writing on the wall that Governor J.B. Pritzker has national ambitions, and that this guy and that the lieutenant governor is likely going to be the governor of Illinois. And really what this is, it's a revolving door of professional politics. Okay. This is not real world accountability. This is just resume padding. And that's what they do, resume padding. And they just look to see what slots are open, and then they get into those slots. So Governor J.B. Pritzker wants voters to see this as torch passing. This isn't torch passing. This is baton handoff for a relay race towards progressive collapse. Okay, this isn't a torch passing. This is a relay race to the bottom, a baton handoff to the bottom. So Christians, we are called to discern these times. Isaiah warns us of leaders who call good evil and call evil good. And what do we see here? This so-called climate bill that he was instrumental in, Christian Mitchell, this burdens working families with higher energy costs, and they do it in the name of equity. Right? They say this is equitable. They are calling evil good. They're saying it's equitable that working families are stuck with higher energy costs because they transitioned us off natural gas and coal, things that actually work. All right, folks, that's Christian Mitchell. I appreciate you being here. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. 2026, we got to get out and vote. Like I said, there's nobody who's entered the race right now that I would be comfortable saying I'd vote for that guy. But I will let you know when somebody actually enters the race who's worth talking about. So, like I said, he's not just setting up a gubernatorial race, Governor J.B. Pritzker. I think that he is running for 2028. It's clear by the way he talks about we got to fight Donald Trump. We got to fight Donald Trump. He wants the 2028 spot on that debate stage with those other Democrats. So that's what he's going for. And Mitchell is his inside man to keep Illinois blue and obedient while he makes his move on the national stage, while Pritzker makes his move. And Illinois deserves better, bottom line, than this political chessboard. We deserve leaders who fear God. All right. You guys have a blessed day. Bye. I love you.